Behind me, Barrett Bowman is a 49-year-old father of twin boys, which you could see, and a football coach and paraprofessional at Deptford High School in New Jersey. For years, Barrett put off going to the doctor because he was, like many Americans, afraid he could not afford it. But when the Affordable Care Act was passed, he finally got the coverage he could afford. 4 years ago, after not feeling well, Barrett made the doctor's appointment and was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, a disease that affects over 10% of Americans and disproportionately impacts Black Americans like Barrett, who are 60% more likely to be diagnosed with diabetes and twice as likely to die from it. Today, Barrett takes insulin and other medications, and his condition has thankfully improved. Barrett said, and I quote, "Obamacare made it so I was not afraid of the costs of going to the doctor. If I didn't have insurance and didn't get diagnosed, who knows where I would be right now." But Barrett is worried about what will happen if the Affordable Care Act gets overturned. He said, and I quote, "Now I have a pre-existing condition. My insurance covers my medications, my equipment to monitor my diabetes. If that's taken away from me, what's going to happen? I can't afford those on my own." Do you believe that every president should make a commitment unequivocally and resolutely to the peaceful transfer of power?
Well, Senator, that seems to me to be pulling me in a little bit into this question of whether the president has said that he would not peacefully leave office.
So maybe I can just go back to asking just a simple question that I hope you'll feel comfortable asking. It's just what I think is an obvious answer again. But do you think it's wrong to separate children from their parents to deter immigrants from coming to the United States?
Well, Senator Booker, that's been a matter of policy debate, and obviously that's a matter of hot political debate in which I can't express a view or be drawn into as a judge.
So I respect that a lot, but I think the underlying question is actually not hotly debated, and just maybe I'll ask it one more time. Do you think it's wrong to separate a child from their parent, not for the safety of the child or parent, but to send a message? As a human being, do you believe that that's wrong?
Well, Senator, I think you're trying to engage me on the administration's border separation policies, and I can't express a view on that. So I'm not expressing assent or dissent with the morality of that position. I just can't be drawn into a debate about the administration's immigration policy.
Right. And of course, the question does have implications, but a very simple, as I said yesterday, that we're debating things that to me are basic questions of human rights, human decency, and human dignity. I'm sorry that we can't have a simple affirmation of what I think most Americans would agree on. I just want to know, have you ever waited 5 hours to vote?
I have not.
Have you ever waited over an hour even?
I have not.
Yeah. Well, in Wisconsin, a state in your circuit, we saw the travesty during the primary earlier this year during a pandemic that many polling places were closed and lines were incredibly long. In Milwaukee, a city of more than 500,000 people located in a county with 70% of that state's Black population, we literally saw out of the city's 180 polling places, only 5 were open, pushing people into hours and hours long wait. Now, comparatively, 66 polling places were open in the city of Madison, a predominantly white city, half the size of Milwaukee. And the U.S. Supreme Court made this all worse with a ruling that restricted mail-in voting at the last minute during a pandemic where Black Americans are dying at twice the rate of white Americans. And let's be clear, this is part of a nationwide problem with racial disparities in voting. A recent study found that residents of entirely Black neighborhoods wait almost 30% longer in lines to vote. And they were 74% more likely to spend more than that half an hour at the polling place. Now, your dissent in Cantor versus Barr, you said something about virtue-based restrictions, which really raised my concern. And that virtue-based restrictions have applied to civic rights like voting and jury service, not individual rights to possess a gun. This approach to the franchise sort of pulls up a lot of history where people used virtue-based restrictions in the past that's been very well documented in our history. Ideas that you can disenfranchise people if they don't meet certain virtue tests. And many of these tests I know you're aware of, but these are like, are you worthy enough if you can't say the whole Declaration of Independence? These are tests that John Lewis used to talk about. Can you count the bubbles in a bar of soap? And we have a nation now where we're doing a Supreme Court justice hearing, the last days of an ongoing election, to a president that can't even condemn white supremacy, where he tells white supremacist groups, stand by, where they're menacing and literally recruiting people to do so-called poll watching, which many people have sounded the alarm in African-American communities, dredging up memories of the past of people intimidating people at polling places. People protesting in our country, all leading into an election where this issue and Roe v. Wade and people's health care, all is going to be on the ballot, but yet we're sitting here acting like this is normal.